Havencrest Castle is what happens when two artists buy an old house up on a hill and then get carried away. Now, it usually gets a laugh, but it's actually completely true. You see, this house did not arrive all at once. There was no master plan in the beginning, no drawing to show what it would someday become. It arrived slowly over time, decision by decision, as we lived here. When Adrianne and I bought the house in 1976, it was plenty big enough. Just two people, no children. We didn't even have a dog yet. Just Tiffany. In fact, after our one-bedroom apartment in Oak Park, to me, the house seemed enormous. We even used to use the landlines to communicate when we were on different floors. It was an old house, charming, a little asymmetrical for Adrianne's taste, but very much of its time and typical of the Queen Anne style. At first, growth meant something very simple. Just finishing the rooms that already existed. All right, maybe not so simple. Completing rooms one at a time, living in them for a while, letting them tell us what they wanted, and then eventually redoing some of them a bit later. Like completely redoing the little reception room in a Gothic style. Then one day, Adrianne looked around and she said, "Alan, we need more canvases." She didn't mean that literally, of course. She meant that the original rooms were either finished or well on their way to being completed. So for two creative people, that's a problem. What is an artist supposed to do next? But our first real additions were the gazebo and the crystal tower. That wasn't about making the house bigger as much as it was about creating a place where our imaginations could stretch a little further towards architectural fantasy, or to see farther vistas than previously possible. It felt almost experimental, which is often how the creative process works. You envision it, manifest it, and sometimes over time you refine it. And you know, it was 17 years after we bought the original house that we embarked on what I later dubbed the Grand Project. That's when the house truly began to expand. And the reason was twofold: to realize Adrianne's dreams to host anniversaries and eventually weddings, and to provide the canvases, so to speak, for me to realize my capacities. for paintings and sculptures over the years ahead. Adrianne was a natural social creature. Here in her autobiography, I drew her as a social butterfly, and she really was. She gathered people the way we eventually gathered books, effortlessly, joyfully. She loved to host, whether it was afternoon teas, soirees, or dinner parties. In those early years, she made the small rooms work. Sometimes people sat on the staircases or floated outside to the front porch or even to the gazebo we built. She made it all work, even during major construction, by holding our annual Christmas and New Year's events at the original Facemaker's location on Chicago Avenue. But eventually, our creative dreams were slowly realized through plans and models. The original rooms simply couldn't hold the life that was happening inside them, and an imagination as bold and expansive as Adrianne's. So the rooms grew. We weren't simply enlarging a house. We were making room for a life that was already happening. It grew because our lives asked more of it. It grew as a response to what two evolving artists were asking from it, including a showcase for Adrianne's art of colored glass and light. It grew because our lives asked more of it. Of course, there was a rather large problem. Our reach always exceeded our grasp. Financially, we were completely inadequate for what we wanted to do. So we had to invent our way forward. I've always loved stage magic, even doing it a bit. And at some point, I began to think of the house as a kind of a magic trick. Interestingly, the original Greenleaf house already was one. What looked like solid brick was actually balloon construction, with a thin, half-brick facing. Even the original tower was an illusion. So illusion was baked into the house from the beginning. We simply continued the tradition, but out of necessity. Necessity is a wonderful teacher. It forces you to learn techniques you never planned to learn, to solve problems creatively rather than conventionally. Many of the methods we used deserve their own stories, and they'll get them. But what matters here is why we use them. To make beauty possible where it otherwise wouldn't have been. Growth is never comfortable. It wasn't comfortable in our relationship. And it certainly wasn't comfortable here. This house is not easy to live in. It's hot in the summer, cold in the winter. Some rooms are not heated at all. On certain days, you can see your breath. Like in the staircase right outside my suite on the 3rd floor. Who would choose to live like this? Well, I did. Because comfort was never the goal, meaning was. As our relationship grew, the house grew with it. Challenges demanded solutions. Limitations forced invention. And over time, all of those decisions, layered one on top of another, became what you see today. Not a design imposed all at once, but a life taking shape in rooms. I'm trying to remember these Chinese gods, and I know Adrianne would know it just like that because she always remembered everything. I'm pretty sure it's longevity. No, I think it's wisdom. And then the man with the peach and the white hair like mine, that's longevity. And here, this fellow, I believe, is good fortune. Well, I think there's a temptation when you see a place like this to just assume that it was inevitable, that it was always headed here. Well, it wasn't. We could have stopped at any time. And I think there were times when Adrianne probably was pretty close to stopping. And maybe I was when I was struggling with a lot of figures that weren't adding up. But we kept going. And isn't that like life? Growth comes from a struggle. Art comes from a struggle of some sort also, usually. So your relationship evolves and your projects evolve and hopefully you evolve. So I don't just see a house that, got bigger for the sake of getting bigger. I think that we had a life going that needed more space to become the life it became. And Havencrest answered that call for us. It really did. One day at a time, one decision at a time, year after year. It still does for me. It still really does. So this is part of it, speaking with you and inviting you in to hear about it. Thanks for coming back to see and listen. So if you liked it, please say, do the like thing, thumbs up. And then, so old. And then subscribe because it's a new channel, and I think that's really important because, we're really, we don't have a lot of subscribers, and that'll allow us to keep making content. So if you like it and you're inclined to do that, please, and comment. Comments are good, apparently. So, and I do read them all and answer them, as you probably noticed. So right now there's not that many comments, so it's not so hard. Anyway, thanks for coming back, and I'll see you next time.